What is up, everybody? They caught me in the middle of a yawn. And welcome to episode 78 of the Hot Soap Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Nunez, joined as always by Mark, Josh, and Austin. I'm pointing at where I see them on my screen. I'm not pointing at where their boxes are. Let's try this again. Josh, right there. Mark, right there.
That's me.
And then Austin, right above me. Yep. That's who I'm being joined by here on the Hot Soap Podcast. First, before we get started, make sure to follow us on Twitter at Hot Soap Pod. That's at Hot Soap Pod on Twitter. Here on the YouTube side, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, do all the normal interacting things that you like to do. That about does it for housekeeping. Today, we're going to be talking about the new rules in Major League Baseball in 2023. There's four main ones, basically, that I want to talk about, and we'll kind of go through each of them, varying from least impactful to potentially most impactful. And I know at least Mark, I want to talk to you about it in particular as someone who worked on a lot of minor league baseball last year, and at least myself as someone who watched a lot of minor league baseball last year with the pitch clock in particular.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about that. We're going to run through that kind of stuff. Couple of content things. Make sure to, did we ever post the movies for Hot Stove Madness? I don't think we posted it.
No, we did not post it on Twitter.
Okay. Remind me to do that tomorrow. I will post those, or maybe even when the show's done tonight. Post those. I'll get those out. So if you didn't watch last week's episode, go watch the beginning of that to find out what we're doing with that. I'll post the list of the movies when I can. It's a good time to say now that I think we'll just call it. Mark and I are going to be doing the Oscars live stream this year.
I thought you were going to the thing.
I'm not going to. I didn't find anybody else to go with me, and I don't want to pay that money to go by myself because it is a pricey ticket to get in.
Yeah,
admittedly. But so we'll be doing that. It'll be 2 weeks from this Sunday, March 12th. The night where we celebrate the magic of the movies. It's the same night as Selection Sunday as we talked about last week. So that'll be fun. We'll be joined by our friend Jordan.
Jesse.
There it is.
Jesse.
Damn it. Sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't say it because I was so afraid to get the name wrong, and I still got it wrong. So hopefully you'll be there, Jesse, because we'll be there. Right,
we'll be there, Jesse. I love the fact that Jesse has kept up with us ever since.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
We got one.
We got one.
One fan of hot stuff.
So we're gonna do that, and then we'll kind of figure out some stuff in between. I don't really have any ideas right now, but we're good about coming up with ideas. You know, we'll figure those out. But first, before we get into the rule changes, we'll be talking some trivia tonight. I got two trivia questions worth a total of, I'll say 6 points.
Total of 38
6 points. 6 points in total, we'll say. And we'll start with, it's a question actually that everyone's going to participate in, because this is a Price is Right style question. And this is a WWE related question. Some wrestling in here. All right. So the question is as follows: how many black WWE champions have there been in the history of World Wrestling Entertainment? I'm talking specifically about the WWE Championship, that one belt. How many African-American men have held
the WWE Championship?
The WWE Championship, yes.
Oh, man.
Closest without going over gets the point.
Honestly, I'm going to go with a super disrespectful answer based on my only early 2000s knowledge, and I'm going to say 2.
Yeah, based on how little I know about professional wrestling and how much I know about Vince McMahon being racist, I'm gonna go with 5.
Yeah, I'm thinking in my head of the ones I know of, and I think they're both. If it's more than 5, I'd be pretty surprised myself. I'm gonna go with 4. I think 4 that I get.
All right, I'm just trying to make sure I have the names right before I give the
Kofi
answer. 'Cause
Kingston have one?
I would like to give the names with them. All right, the answer is 4. That is correct. Josh got it right.
Kofi Kingston, Mark Henry, Big E, and who's the fourth one?
The Rock.
Oh,
Bobby Lashley, by the way, would be the 4th one. Technically speaking.
The Rock does. Yeah, I don't think The Rock's black.
He's Blamoan. That's what he always says. He's half black, half Samoan. He always says that.
I want my butt!
If you wanted to count that, then it would be 6, including The Rock and Roman Reigns. But
then I would win.
Otherwise, it is 4. And do you have Josh? I'll give you two extra points here if you can tell me what all 4 of those WWE champions have in common.
Outside of them being
other than the skin color, yes.
They've only held it for 1 reign. I don't know. They've only had it at 1 time. I don't know if that's actually...
that is technically true, but not what I was thinking
of. They're all no, they're not all big fellas.
Kofi Kingston, man.
Yeah, I don't know what we're getting at here. I don't got it.
I'm just again making sure I got this right. It looks like
they have all, excluding 3 of them, competed on the World's Strongest Man.
I just like to clarify here. It doesn't look like, and this is from Wikipedia, it doesn't look like Mark Henry held the WWE championship.
Oh fuck! Was it the World Heavyweight Championship? It might have been. Yeah. He might have been World Heavyweight. So if it's Big E, Kofi,
Bobby Lashley, and one other person. Give me 1 second. The answer is 4. I know that for certain. I just have to plumb through it. Is it technically The Rock?
R-Truth?
Did
he hold it in the
Booker
2011s
T?
again? No, he was he was World Heavyweight.
Oh.
Actually, his were WCW. But...
The answer is The Rock. He's the 4th one. Okay. I just had to clarify. Before I went through with it. Anyways, the thing that holds them all in common, The Rock, Big E, Kofi Kingston, and Bobby Lashley in their WWE title reigns, is that they all lost the belt to Brock Lesnar.
That's such a Brock Lesnar thing to do.
Well, oh yeah, at one point, yeah, they've all lost.
Yeah, at one point, The Rock obviously had multiple
he had a couple,
reigns, but the other 3 only had 1 reign, and they were all ended by Brock
Lesnar. Yeah. That's pretty funny. Kofi's was like the Friday after he won, or like instantly.
Yeah, which was ridiculous because he had spent 10 years in the WWE. Working up as a fan favorite and getting, Kofi Mania and whatnot, and then they took it away in about 2 seconds.
The first Fox on Friday night, or first Friday Night SmackDown on Fox, they're like, yeah, we'll give it to Lesnar.
Yeah.
Similar thing with Big E. He gets it, and they're like, well, let's give it back to Lesnar.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a disgustingly low number. Even outside of WWE, then there's like Mark Henry, Booker T,
R-Truth was champion for a little bit. MVP was perennial, Intercontinental champion.
Yeah.
Or I'm sorry, United States champion. Yeah.
Yeah, but even
MVP took the torch of perennial United States champion from Shelton Benjamin.
Another good one, yeah.
I would just like to say I am very proud of myself for not having an absolutely embarrassing answer there.
No, that was good.
Only because I was like, well, Vince McMahon is racist, so it can't be that many. And I could think of 2 black wrestlers, and they were The Rock and Bobby Lashley.
I could only think. I mean, you can go to other races too. Fucking A. Find me a Latino who was a champion.
And
outside of Eddie
mind
Guerrero
you,
or
Bobby
Jose
Lashley
Maria.
only got the title in like 2019. You know how
Oh,
long
yeah.
he's been in the WWE?
The only reason I know who Bobby Lashley is because I've watched him.
Mm.
Yeah.
At WrestleMania a couple years ago, with other Zach, friend of the show, who's never been on the show but gets mentioned. Other Zach and I just watched WrestleMania one year. It's
Wow,
the
yeah.
first time I had watched live wrestling.
The Showcase of the Immortals. Hell
Dude,
yeah.
Mania this year. Josh, we'll have to talk afterwards. I haven't watched Elimination Chamber yet.
It's worth it. It's very
Yeah,
good.
I've heard. But anywho, so that's trivia question number 1. It's time for trivia question number 2. This is a baseball question.
Oh, thank God.
Worth 3 points. All right. In 2022, this past season, there were 3 hitters in Major League Baseball who had a strikeout rate lower than 14% and had an average exit velocity over 90 miles an hour. There were 3.
Hard hitters that don't strike out.
Juan Soto.
No, he struck out a lot last year. That was his problem. He started striking out more.
Yeah, he's just a walker.
I don't think his exit velo would be this high, but he does hit the ball hard enough. Arias?
No, not
Okay.
Luis Arias.
Jeremy Pena.
No. Marlins legend Luis Arias, by the way.
Oh yeah. This is a good question.
Tage Thompson takes the
He score? Yeah! Sorry.
Xander Bogaerts?
Nope.
Man, this is tough. Trick question. Everybody has over a 14% K rate in the MLB these days.
No, there are 3 hitters. I'm looking at the names right now.
No.
I'll give you a hint right off the bat. They're all in the American League, and 2 of them are young guys who have only debuted within the last 2 seasons.
I
Oh,
was kind of close with that Pena guess based on that guess.
yeah. I thought Pena was a solid guess.
I'll take that.
The other guy is a guy that we've talked about before as a strange physical anomaly.
That one throws me off. I'm gonna focus on
Mike Zunino.
No, and it's also not Nomar Mazara. I'm not sure he's actually on a roster.
Yeah, he was at one point last year. Young guys in the American League.
Vlad Guerrero.
Franco. Oh, that's the one.
No and no.
Ooh. Huh.
I
This is
feel like
really
guessing
good
a lot of
question.
people on that Jays team might be a good route here. What about
They all strike
Bichette?
out too much, though.
Yeah.
Not Bo Bichette.
Yeah, like Teoscar struck out too much. Lourdes Gurriel Jr.?
Nope.
Yeah, you're right, Mark. You've been in the Jays.
I can tell you, I don't think a Tigers hitter hit a single ball over 90 miles an hour last
No.
year. So,
You don't think
All right,
you're
I'll
gonna
give you the
beat no one?
divisions. We have 2 in the American League East and 1 in the American League Central.
Andres Jimenez?
Nope.
Jose Ramirez?
Oh, I was gonna say Jose Ramirez. Thank God. Saved my mental right there.
Luis Robert?
Nope.
No, he strikes out.
Mark, who was that? The Asian fella there for the Guardians. Who
There's
went on that
no
crazy
way
streak.
he hit the ball that hard.
I don't think
It is
so. but he
not.
didn't
It is
strike
not
out.
Steven.
It's
Kwan.
not Stephen Kwan. Okay. Yeah.
What about? Oh man, no, I'm losing it. I'm losing it. Losing my mental. I watched too many Guardians games this year.
It's not the Franimal.
Franimal.
Bobby Witt?
Nope.
That guy.
Vinny
Wow.
Pasquantino?
Vinny P. That's
Vinny
one of
P.
them. Vinny Pasquantino.
Excuse
one.
me.
God, I didn't expect one of them to be a royal.
And an Italian, no less.
Alright, what are we talking about here?
What about
That's really throwing me off.
give me Cedric Mullins?
Nope.
It's
Out-
Cedric Mullins again.
Outly
I
Ruch-
love that video. That video
is
gets
not
me
Adley
every
Rutschman.
single time. It's Cedric Mullins again.
I got a good one. This one, Josh Donaldson.
He did have a bounce back this year. Randy Arozarena?
No. I'll give you the positions. We have a third baseman and a catcher.
Ocean Man.
Catcher that isn't Adley Rushman.
I mean, is it Devers? Was Devers said?
TNT again.
No, but it was not Devers.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
TNT again. Oh, daddy.
Alright. I already mentioned the best third baseman in the American League East, Josh Donaldson. So
Yandy Diaz?
Remember when I said weird physical anomaly?
Yeah, because he's so strong and he hits 8 home runs a year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yandy Diaz is one of them.
So the other one's also in the American League East, and he's a catcher.
There aren't very many options if you're wondering.
Yeah.
I
They
mean,
had to have been qualified hitters.
what
Connor
are we
Wong?
saying?
No, it's not Connor Wong.
Alejandro Kirk?
Yeah,
Alejandro Kirk is the other one. Yes.
yeah.
They
It's
were
either
the,
him or Danny Jansen. It was one of those Blue Jays.
The 3 qualified hitters with a strikeout rate lower than 14% and an average exit vehicle over 90 miles an hour is Alejandro Kirk, Yandy Diaz, and Vinny P. Vinny Pasquantino.
What a trio of players. Talk about naming dudes. Yeah.
Vinny Pasquantino is people snooze because he plays for the Royals. And he was blocked for most of the season by Carlos Santana, of all fucking people.
Mhm.
But the dude came up and did nothing but hit.
Yeah.
Dude is good.
He's gonna be a stud.
The dude is good. Yeah. So that's trivia. That's it for trivia. So let's move on to our main topic of the day, and that's going to be rule changes in Major League Baseball. We've got 4 major ones that we're going to be talking about, and I'm gonna go through them. I'll guide the conversation through them in order of what I perceive to be the least important to the most important, or the least impactful to the most, in theory, impactful. Because spoiler alert, I'm not 100% sure which one of these rules is the most impactful. And I'm also not 100% sure that outside of one of them, any of these rules are really all that impactful. But let's start with the big old bases. As you may know, the bases in Major League Baseball are increasing this year in 3 inches in total on all sides. So they were originally a 15-inch square. They're now an 18-inch square. And from what I understand, as you can see with this article that we are looking at here from MLB.com, is that the main reason behind the bigger bases was effectively just to strengthen base running. As actually most of these rules, I would argue that 2 of these rules in particular are both meant to empower base runners in particular. And this is one of them. This is easily the least impactful of the 2. However, it did lead to tangible effects in the minor leagues last year. You'll see some of the numbers on this, and can I have it right here? If I have the numbers somewhere, yeah. So from the last full, if you want to scroll down a little bit, Mark, the last full minor league season. Oh, we're looking at the other article.
Oh, it's the other article.
Yeah, the other article. Yeah, it was this article in particular is about the effects that these rules had on in minor league baseball. So you'll see here the last full season in which minor league baseball had under their previous rule set was 2019. 2020 obviously didn't happen, and then 2021 a little bit of skewed results. So you'll see that stolen base attempts were up between the two seasons from 2019 and last year, almost 0.6 of an attempt, which I believe is technically per game, right?
Yes. Yeah,
That's
that's
a per game rate.
Yeah.
And more importantly, the effectiveness of those shot up 9% from 68 to 77%. So that's really like the base reason behind this rule is to make base running more effective, essentially. And you can imagine like a tangible impact of this game or of this rule change, not just being on stolen bases, but being on like you could see players' BABIP increasing ever so slightly because of a rule change like this, because of those, those bang bang plays that we see all the time. They technically have an extra 3 inches or they have 3 fewer inches between home plate and first base, right? So there's the possibility for that to change a little bit. Again, I don't necessarily see it having like massive statistical changes in that way. It might mean that a player like Trey Turner or a player like Bobby Witt, for example, who was 99th percentile in sprint speed last year, probably will leg out a few more base hits, a few more infield base hits this year. Probably, like that seems fairly reasonable to assume. But I think the biggest impact on this, and it comes in tandem with one of the other rules. Like I don't think the bigger bases solo would incentivize teams to run more often. I think it would make them technically better at it because there's a smaller distance to travel, and we've seen that empirically that success rate goes up. But I think the bigger bases in tandem with the limited amount of pickoffs that pitchers have now will increase base running aggressiveness. That's something that we saw in the minors like wholeheartedly last year.
Just something about the bigger bases, which isn't being talked about here, but I think is an important aspect. This will also hopefully cut down on the amount of times we see a runner stepping on a first baseman's leg or vice versa on a, play at first base, guys that, it's going to be interesting. It's interesting to see Terrence Gore, shout out Terrence Gore, Syracuse Met last year. Very nice guy. Talking about running, he couldn't tell a difference, but there might be a slight adjustment period in terms of sliding, especially if you're going to slide head first and stick your hands out. Maybe, there might be a slight adjustment for that given the size difference. But something that is important, at least in my opinion, to point out is hopefully this cuts back on injuries. We've seen it was Jesus Aguilar in the playoffs a couple years ago from Milwaukee playing against the Dodgers. He got stepped on real bad at first base. You never want to see stuff like that happen. Hopefully this cuts down on that as well.
Yeah. Yep. And I think overall, when we think about this is a thought process that I'm stealing from Cespedes Barbecast or Baseball Barbecast. Shout out to the Cespedes family baseball barbecue guys. This like you ask the question, I think with these 4 rules is like, does it change the way that I watch baseball? Right. And do bigger bases change the way that I watch baseball? No, they're not a thing that I'll notice on the field. Again, it'll change the complexion of some plays here and there, but I don't think by themselves it'll necessarily harbor a great change. The next rule change that I wanted to talk about is actually the shift limit, the change in defensive positioning in Major League Baseball this year. And that's now, correct me if I'm wrong, that's not a rule that was that test run in the minor leagues last year?
More than just
remember.
More than just last year. That's been in the minors for 2 years, I think.
Okay.
Not exactly the same limits that Major League Baseball is implementing, but there have been limits on defensive shifts.
Okay. So effectively the new limits are basically that the two infielders on either side of second base have to remain on that side of that plane until the pitch is delivered, correct? Like until the ball leaves the pitcher's hand, if that's how I understand it, at least. And I think maybe some of the misconception about the rule is that when you hear the words shift ban, right? It seems big and sweeping.
That's
and
not what it is.
Exactly. And it sounds like players aren't allowed to move. That is definitely not what it is. It really what it eliminates is it eliminates the shortstop playing in shallow left field against a right-handed pull hitter. It eliminates, a second baseman playing in shallow right field with the shortstop on the other side of second base against Joey Gallo. Like that is really like the minutia of what it means to eliminate in particular. Otherwise, outside of that, those kinds of shift circumstances, when you ask the question again, does this change the way I watch baseball? Not necessarily. Like you can still shift players over to where like the second baseman is playing the gap between second and first, and the shortstop is effectively on second base. Like that's still a formation that you can have.
Mm-hmm.
And in that way, I don't necessarily think it'll change all that much. And it's not something I've thought about in like watching minor league baseball. Like I said, I went to plenty of minor league games last year, and it's not a thing I noticed. You know what I mean? And maybe it's because it wasn't a thing I was looking for really all that much, but it's certainly not a thing that I noticed like that.
And it's sort of gotten to the point where a shift is a shift is a shift. Like we just see them so often now that you wouldn't notice. Fourth bullet point that it brings up here in the article, both of these written by Anthony Cantrovence, by the way. Christ almighty, Mark. This rule does not preclude a team from positioning an outfielder in the infield or in the shallow outfield grass in certain situations, but it does prohibit 4 outfielder alignments. We will see outfielders. Like, you will see a right fielder run up and play in the dirt or in the grass right behind the dirt at second base. That's a thing we're going to see this year, is 2 outfielders moving over, basically playing left center and right center, and then either the left fielder or right fielder basically becoming another infielder just by running forward. So I don't know who the first to do that is going to be, but I saw Theo Epstein talking about that. Theo works in the Major League Baseball office now. I saw him talking about that the other day, and he was like, someone's going to do that. We will see 2 outfielders at times, which is a wild thing to think about. But
yeah, I'm just interested to see what it looks like. Like I want to see, I want to see what new wrinkles this forces teams to make. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and an outfielder can even play in the dirt. You can put an outfielder in the dirt with this, which I think it's stupid that you can't put an infielder in the grass, but you can put an outfielder in the dirt. I think that's a ridiculous thing to do, but then you're stuck with 2 outfielders. So I guess it makes sense, but
yeah, I think it'll look mad silly. Like I'm excited to see what team tries the 2 outfielder look.
The definition of bring it in. Bring it
in. Precisely. Like that's beer league softball levels of bring it in.
Joey Gallo is going to get shifted like I got shifted when I was playing varsity baseball.
Oh, yeah.
We don't need an outfielder. He's not hitting it past the second baseman. Trust me.
Clear the dirt.
Joey Gallo could play an entire season where they weren't allowed to have a third baseman or shortstop and would still bat 210.
Correct.
This is also true.
Yeah. Now, Austin, you're the one person that I know, like personally, who, in theory, again, I don't know about the minutia, how you feel about it, but has been opposed to like shift bans in the past. Having spoken to you, what are your thoughts on the actual rule itself and
as
and
as a fan of this like baseball itself, playing it growing up, I'm not a fan of it, but as like understanding the position the MLB's in and the way the sport's been headed, I feel like it's a necessary kind of evil in my opinion, because hitters have just been getting, just outclassed year after year after year. It's getting worse and worse and worse. Like pitchers just seem to be getting crazy amounts better, while hitters are very minutely getting better every year, and they just can't keep up with spin rates and velocity and pitch locations. It's just too much, and I think the shift added onto it just makes hitters who try and focus on one kind of way of hitting. They can't. Not everybody can be like wearing Mike Trout, right? So like hitters who just focus on trying to hit the ball hard, pull the ball, hit the ball deep, are just taken out of the game essentially once you just put 5 players on the right side of the field and you just continue to pound freaking off speed in. They can't play the game. So I think it's good for the sport in general. I just never liked the idea of continuously like restricting players' movements in the field. I think it takes a bit of strategy away from like, you know, it feels like intuitively you should be able to do these things against hitters' weaknesses, and it feels like it's opening up, part of the game for bad hitters. I'll say, I don't want to say bad hitters, but like kind of bad hitters to just
maybe a
do.
below average guy becomes
Yeah,
average now
yeah.
because and it's okay.
And I feel like the guys like Miguel, or like prime Miguel Cabrera, like Trouts and stuff, they'll be okay. They'll still be good. They'll still be great. But it reduces their difference between themselves and those other guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I also personally, at least, I see that as like I think the gap closing that you propose there is probably like negligible. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I think it's one of those things where I think legitimately this kind of affects things on the margins a little bit. Like certain players' BABIPs will go up, they won't be shifted as much. Sure, I think it's possible that like grounders up the middle tend to get into the outfield slightly more. Again, the fact that you can have your shortstop for, again, this is in the example of a left-handed hitter, right? So lefty pull guy at the plate, you move your second baseman into the gap, and you have your shortstop effectively play second. Again, as soon as the pitcher moves, they're playing second. They can go on either side of the base. Yeah. So like there's probably going to be situations where balls squeak into holes where they normally wouldn't have because the shift would have been there originally. But I think this one probably affects things more on the margins than like grand sweeping.
Yeah, I guess this rule specifically, I feel like it's going to be pretty marginal at best. I mean, like if you think about when the pitcher starts moving, the second baseman's going to be playing on the edge of the dirt and grass, right? Mm-hmm. And as soon as the pitcher starts his motion, he's going to drop 3 steps into the grass, and then the shortstop's going to sprint over to the second base side. You're going to see a pretty much exact same setup. Maybe like what you're saying, like a step or two behind. So it's really going to be very, very marginal things that are different. So
the one thing, and it's sort of like in conjunction with Austin's point that I've never loved about the shift. And also, can we stop pretending like the shift is like a new thing? Reggie Jackson was getting the shift. Ted Williams got shifted against. Like this is a thing that's always been in baseball. It's just much more prevalent now. I'm not going to sit here and say Joey Gallo is going to be a 300 hitter now because he isn't. Do I think Joey Gallo can hit 210 again instead of $160 like he hit the last 2 years? Yes, I do. I think there's potential for that. But what the shift does, and a reason I've never really liked it, is there are certain things that have always been a hit in baseball. A hard grounder up the middle has always been a base hit.
No, you think about it, like that's a ball that gets in the outfield,
Yeah, like this might be a stupid rationalization. Like, hard grounder up the middle, that's a base hit. A sinking line drive into short right field for a left-handed pull hitter is a base hit. It doesn't get caught by a guy that doesn't have to move. And I think when you take that away, it does like mess with the guy's confidence. How many of those did Joey Gallo have where he hits a hard liner towards right field and it just gets caught by a guy who just happens to be standing there? That's gotta suck because that something that has been a base hit for 150 years just isn't anymore.
Yeah, and if you happen to be a fan of the worst power hitting team in the entire league, you know, the shift is just brutal when all your team does is hit line drives and ground balls.
But like, sure, there are guys that, you know, it doesn't, like Michael Brantley doesn't get shifted against because he's just like, all right, if you shift against me, I will take it the other way. And it's always great to be like, oh, you're a professional hitter, you know, just hit the ball the other way. How many guys have really been able to do that with any sort of consistency?
Yeah, I think that really just like minimizes how hard it is to hit a baseball.
Well, yeah, you start naming the guys that were always able to do that. They all have a plaque in Cooperstown. It's like, yeah, you know, just be like Tony Gwynn, just be like Rod Carew, just be like Ichiro, just be like Miguel Cabrera.
Time out. I know this won't matter when this episode comes out tomorrow. Charlotte is up 6 with 2.5 minutes remaining in the game. It's like,
how many points do they have?
48.
God damn it.
Mark, the under was
foul season. It's foul season.
It is almost foul season.
It is foul season.
Yeah. Next possession, it'll probably be foul season.
Low
54 and a half?
54
The total in the game was 110.
Yeah, I did see that.
It's the lowest total I've ever seen.
This is a lock, man. It's too close to the game.
Well, they're now at 92.
Yeah.
That's the total currently.
This thing was soaring under.
All
right. Yeah. So
my
the
fault,
next two rule
Charlotte money
changes,
line.
the next two rule changes are technically in conjunction with one another. They are both restrictions on pitching in one way, shape, or form. I think one of them affects pitchers more, or one of them tends to affect pitchers in particular, and then the other one is meant as more of a sweeping change to the game. And I think first I want to talk about that one, and that's the pitch clock. It's a thing again that like people have made declarations about the pitch timer and blah 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 ever since it was originally proposed like a few years ago, right, to be in the major league. So we're gonna add a pitch timer for every like old baseball pundit. The sky was falling, basically. And I think this is a point where we can talk about this as fans in particular, and as fans in smaller markets who have seen this played out in the minor leagues over the last couple of years. And Mark, in particular, you working for the Syracuse Mets last year. From all I understand, and if you want a larger, in-depth conversation about it, again, I referenced Baseball Barbercast. One of their episodes last week was about these rule changes, and they had Ryan Lavarnway on, longtime pro catcher. Yeah. They talked to him for probably shout out to Israel. They talked to him for probably about 45 minutes about it. And they went really in depth with it and how it affects players and pitchers, and especially, you know, from a catcher's perspective, someone who does have to do both, right? Like they have to be in charge of that on the pitching side, and they also have to worry about being a hitter in that situation. Basically, from his account and from other people's accounts, what I understand is that players kind of just react to it the way players react to any other change in baseball. Is where like it's going to be difficult out of off rip, right? Like you think of the situation last year where Jazz Chisholm steps out of the box after one of his pitches, and he's fixing his gloves, and the ref is clapping at him to get back in the box, and he takes forever to get back in the box. And the first pitch after he gets back in the box, he hits a home run, right? Like you think of those situations, and those are gone, right? There's a I believe the timer in the major leagues is 15 seconds with the bases empty in between pitches. It was 14 in the minors, and I believe it's 15 in the majors. I can check that real quick. Yeah, 15 seconds with the bases empty, and then a 20-second timer with bases loaded. So the pitcher can, because of everything else a pitcher has to do when there are runners on base. So like those kinds of things are over. The players stepping out of the box for 30 seconds and checking their gloves and redoing their bat and slapping fine. Shit.
I'm as someone whose favorite player growing up was Nomar Garciaparra, good riddance.
Well, and this is the thing. Like you'll see the I believe it's the article about the minor leagues, when they bring, there was one example that they brought basically where there was a game last year that had it all, right? 7
Yeah.
total runs, 13 total hits, and 17 strikeouts,
boy.
and 8 walks, and the game took 2 hours and 17 minutes. All it does, all of all the empirical evidence that we've had of the pitch clock, which is the last few years in the minors. Like this isn't just a 2022 thing. It's been around, I believe, in some form and in some leagues since, I think was it implemented in the low minors in 2019? Is that what it was?
Yeah, I think so.
And it didn't come up until the higher minors until 2021, maybe. Yeah. Regardless, we've had a couple years worth of data on this, right? And all the data has shown is that games are quicker. That's literally it. You look at sweeping game data from 2019 in the minors to 2021. Runs per game, about the same. Strikeouts per game, hits per game. All of those grand stats tend to be the same. The only difference is that it's cutting out all of the dead time in between a bunch of the different plays. And personally, as a fan, I mean, that's the goal. Like, this is literally what Major League Baseball has set out to do with all of the fuckery that Rob Manfred's been on about for like the last 5 years, right? He hired Theo Epstein to basically fix the problems that Theo Epstein caused. And this is like in terms of how will this affect how I watch baseball? Like, will this have an effect on how I watch baseball? This is the one rule of the 4 that is an unequivocal yes. And it's also an unequivocal benefit to the fans and to the game in particular. Players, I know they quote Terrence Gore again in this story, talking about how much he loves the pitch clock. And it's the same thing with any rule change, really, where I think last year when it was implemented in AAA, they had a few weeks in AAA last year where they actually didn't enforce it. What they did instead was that they would just watch the games, and in between half innings, umpires would go to the pitchers and their catchers and they'd be like, hey, just try to be a little quicker there, do this. This was 2021. I'm sorry. Last year it was in full effect. It was like, hey, just be a little quicker here, do this a little differently there. That would have been a violation. That would have been a violation, yada, yada, yada. And that's effectively what spring training is going to be this year, because Major League Baseball has already said that like they're starting with it. Like, it will be enforced from opening day. And the data shows from last year that basically pitch clock violations, which I think is something we should talk about, as there is a violation behind it. I believe it's an extra ball added to the count.
They just add a ball.
Yeah. They weren't necessarily high. It was like 1 or 2. God, I can't remember the numbers now. I believe it was like somewhere around.
It was probably 1.5
1 or 2 per game.
Yeah.
For the first month, 6 weeks of the season, and then as soon as June rolled around, basically last year, it dropped to 1 every 2 games.
Not for the Syracuse Mets, it did. I swear there was 4 every game I worked.
So basically it's one of those things where, like, it's some players are probably going to bitch about it. And some players, I can imagine, like, for example, in conjunction with this, there's new rules on balks and on certain kinds of like pitching motions that can be used.
Kelly Jansen might retire by the time.
Luis Garcia, for example, for the Astros is gonna have to change his entire windup because of this, because the whole rocking the baby thing, that's a balk now. Like, it's just, they will not be allowed.
He doesn't do that with runners on base anyway, does he?
No, he does not.
Yeah, so balk doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Like I said, the one I think of is Kenley Jansen. Kenley Jansen balks every, like, letter of the law, balks every single time he throws a ball. He lifts up his front leg like 6 times before he ever throws the ball. That is the definition of a balk. It's like, oh, he never comes set. Bullshit. Kenley let his foot rest for like 2 seconds, pick it up again, and set it back down. So he might retire halfway through the season because he's gonna allow 15 runs just on balks. Which, as someone who he was signed to be the closer for my favorite team, I don't love that. I don't love that one bit.
I just like to say that first of all, Charlotte just won. Second of all,
how many points did they score?
They scored 55, Mark. Yeah, foul season, bitches. Come on.
There's gonna be a stat correction.
But on top of that, you can see in this that minor league games in 2022 were cut by 25 minutes on average. Mm-hmm. Like, again, this is exactly what Major League Baseball has been trying to do. And I'll ask you, Josh, and Austin, is people who you came with me to watch. I mean, you went to Red Wings games last year. You saw this in effect in person. What did you guys think of the pitch clock? Did it change the way that you thought about it? Or at some point, at least for me, I can say that like after the first couple games, I didn't even notice that it was a thing anymore, basically.
I didn't notice really much at all. That.
I think it's got to be the number one influencer in terms of making the game go by faster, though. Yep. In terms of speed, pace of play. I mean, you make a rule for the pitchers like this, and then isn't there another rule now that like batters can only step out of the box once during an at bat or something? Is that a thing or no? Because it should be. Well, I can't stand guys getting out every time, dusting off the hands, doing it. Stay in the fucking box. Look at the pitch. Let's keep going here.
They tried like 5 years ago to say you can't step out of the box. Like one foot has to stay in the box. And just no one listened to it. And it was never enforced. So they just gave up on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just, I mean, you want games to go by faster. It's just like, let's pitch, let's hit, let's keep going here.
Yeah.
And I get like sometimes if a guy throws up top at your head or something, you got to like get out, like there's times obviously, but like, you just watch a heater go by and you're like, okay, let me step out, redo the gloves, this, that. It's like, what are we doing here?
Like I said, I watched Nomar Garciaparra growing up. That guy could have a good morning, good afternoon, and good night strikeout that would take 7 minutes. Because it was just like, gets up to the box. He did every single pitch. He did this with his batting gloves about 58 times. And, kicking the dirt around. Like, I've always said, I don't care how long Major League Baseball games are. I will sit down and watch a 4.5 hour game. No problem.
This isn't, I'm sorry to interject. This isn't a rule change for the sickos. Like, I'll watch baseball all year for however fucking long it lasts. Yeah. Because I'm a sick fuck. That's why. But like, this isn't for the sick fucks.
No, this rule is not for me. I watch at least one, if not two, full baseball games every single day. And then that doesn't include the hours I spend watching MLB Network to get caught up on everything else that happened in Major League Baseball that day. Like, so honestly, I couldn't care less how long a baseball game is. I think this is good.
Yeah, I'll tell you this. Going to a bunch of Red Wings games last year, it was nice. Leaving after like 2.5 hours.
Yeah,
that was fun.
It was great when I was at the studio and I was getting out at like 9:30 for a 7 o'clock game. I'm like, and that includes the post game show. Like, this is fantastic.
That's great.
I wonder if, and it definitely won't, but like with less time on average for games, so fans basically are paying for less of an experience in terms of length. You'd think that would lead to maybe a cheaper ticket price, but there's no way that's a possibility.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
I wonder, what I wonder? I wonder who's going to be the first pitcher to use a faulty pitch comm in their ear as a means to stall for more time.
Garrett Cole, opening day.
Who's going to be the first one, and why is it going to be Max Scherzer?
No, it's going to be Garrett Cole. Garrett Cole was mad at Billy Crystal on opening day last year. That guy will say anything.
That was absurd. But like, I don't even know if Garrett Cole uses the pitch comm, to be honest with you.
He
That's
won't
that's
have
the
to. He'll say
that's-
he's using it, and he just
that's
won't.
the extra wrinkle. Is I feel like you probably have to be using it to make up that excuse.
He'll try.
But I'm just interested to see how like teams manipulate. Someone asked last week when they showed up to spring training. Someone asked Juan Soto about the shuffle. And they're like, "How do you plan on doing that?" And his response, he was like, "I'm working on it." So like, he's gonna make sure it's in those 15 seconds or so.
Mhm. Just does one. It's just a quick one.
Yeah, just one shuffle, grabs the nuts, and then he's back in the box, ready
Yeah.
to go. Yeah, I'm in. I'm in to see how teams manipulate this because again, like this is one of those things where like these teams are probably going to try and get pretty crafty with these rules. And oh my god, Siri came up for no reason on my computer. Go away. Thank you. Teams are probably going to get pretty crafty, right? And I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be fun. Mark, the challenge system isn't even something that I considered, to be honest with you. The other rule that I was referring to is woven into the pitch clock rule, and it's the limited amount of pickoffs that pitchers have per at bat now. And I think this is the rule that has the most tangible effect on the way the game is played, like on in-game strategy. I think it is arguably the single rule that is going to change base running in particular moving forward, because the new rule states basically that pitchers are now limited to 3 pickoff attempts per at bat. And it's a pace of play thing partially, and otherwise it's meant to encourage more aggressive base running, because on that 3rd pickoff attempt, if it's not successful, I believe that it's registered as a balk, right? Is that what it is?
Yeah, it automatically advances 1 base, so basically a balk.
So what that means is a few things. I think that means that in the beginning of the season, that pitchers are probably going to be more cautious with their pickoffs in general, because they know that after that 2nd pickoff, if they pick a runner off twice, the runner is going to have a 900-foot lead on their next pitch, because they know they're not going to try and go back. It's going to be that interesting game right there. I think a couple of different ways it's going to make stealing bases easier. Basically, is what it is, right? That situation, and then on the flip side, because they're going to be more cautious with their pickoff attempts, runners will be incentivized to be more aggressive in earlier parts of the count and in different situations than they normally would be, because they know that conversely, those pitchers are going to be more cautious with those pickoff attempts. Like I said, I think that it is easily the rule that changes the game, like strategy itself, the most, even if it doesn't necessarily, like, it's not something that, like, this isn't a rule that your average fan would notice, I think, in game. I don't think it's a thing that like the average person would point out while they're watching a baseball game. But I do think it's probably the most impactful of these 4 rules that we've talked about tonight.
I will say this ruins my favorite heckle I've ever heard during a baseball game. I was watching a spring training game with my dad back in 2013, 2014. Washington Nationals, and there's a guy who played for the Syracuse Chiefs back in the day by the name of Yuri Perez, same name as the Marlins pitching prospect. And center fielder, very fast, like stole a lot of bases in Syracuse. And so he's up in spring training, and the pitcher throws over 6-7 times. And Yuri doesn't even have that big of a lead. And it's a spring training game, so there's, 500 people there. And it gets picked up on the crowd mic, a fan yelling, "Don't even bother throwing over, he's going." And then the pitcher lifts his leg, and Yuri is off and running and steals the base by a mile. It isn't even close. And then you hear on the crowd mic the same guy go, "Fucking told you, idiot."
I'll have to look up that video. That's hilarious.
I don't know if there's a video of it. I was watching that game live. Like my dad and I are just watching that game, and we're like, "Oh, hey, Yuri's on first base. He's been playing center field for the Chiefs for like 2 years at that point. Like, oh, don't even bother throwing over. He's going." Steals the base. Fucking told you, idiot.
Yeah. So moments like that, I think, will cease to
gone.
exist.
They're gone.
Unfortunately.
It's a shame.
Yeah, Austin, Josh, you guys have any thoughts on this rule in particular? How it may change the way at bats look a little bit?
I think the culmination of, pitch clock, limited pickoffs, and then the bases. We're going to see some people actually try to steal bases and be aggressive. I feel like the last couple of years in the MLB have been very stale. I mean, specific teams will steal, but that's how it is. It's like specific teams just commit to trying to steal bases, and some just don't at all. And so hopefully that opens it up to more teams. Just saying, I mean, there's such an advantage to getting a big lead now. There's such an advantage to knowing when a pitch is probably going to be thrown. We should hopefully see more stolen bases.
Yeah, and that was a tangible change that happened in the minors last year. Like stolen bases skyrocketed. I forgot who the hell it was. Was it Estieri Ruiz last year?
Yeah, he stole 1 million.
Give me 1 second.
I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna put a hot take out there that someone's gonna steal 100 bases this year.
That's hilarious.
100 would be a lot, but I do think that there's a chance that we probably, like, for example, I think it changes team wide, and I think it changes with the higher end. It can, depending on the philosophy of these teams, change the higher end output. Like, for example, Trey Turner, could he go back to being a 50 steal guy? Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's all going to depend on intent. But I definitely think that there is a possibility of that. Bobby Witt Jr., could he steal 40 bags this year, even though he stole 25 last year? 30
No,
maybe?
30. He had 20 home runs, 30 stolen bases. Yeah.
Could he push 50? Absolutely. Could the fastest players in baseball on teams that want to run, right? And I think the bigger thing team-wise is that it might incentivize good teams to run more, because you'll notice a lot of good teams in baseball kind of just ditch it, with the exception of the Yankees, who were like weirdly aggressive on the base paths last year. Like the Dodgers don't really run unless they got a guy who's good at running and he's at the top of the lineup. The Astros don't really run like that. The Braves don't really try unless you're Ronald Acuna, and that's because you're Ronald Acuna. So like I think it could incentivize like good teams to try and run more. I think that's possible, and I think on the margins, it'll bring certain kinds of players up, like those super high sprint speed guys. Their ceiling could definitely raise a good bit more, and then a lot of guys who are almost it's not to say that like someone like Nolan Arenado is going to steal 10 bags this year, right? Like that won't happen. He's slow and he doesn't want to run anyways. But like, for example, could Freddie Freeman steal 15 this year?
He stole 12 last year.
Exactly. Like, could someone like his numbers go up, right? How many did Judge steal last year? 16? Right?
Something like that, yeah. He could
16?
steal 20.
Could he steal 20 plus this year? Yeah, absolutely.
Also, I just got to say, this is Estieri Ruiz's numbers. 85 stolen bases in 114 games. He played professionally last year. Is fucking wild.
Ran free.
Basically 85% success rate too. 14 caught stealing, so 85 for 99.
Yeah. So like, again, I don't know how many of those. Like, if Malik Smith were still in the majors, he might steal 100 bags this year. That's an example.
I maintain there is no reason, absolutely none, that Trey Turner shouldn't steal 70 bases a year.
Yeah. He's good enough to do it. It's just a matter of trying to do it.
Yeah.
And I think, the question remains is, are these rules enough to incentivize teams to try to do it? In the minors, they were. It's just a question as to whether or not they will also be that incentive in the major leagues. We'll see.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see. Really. Yeah. that does it for these big rule changes in Major League Baseball. We had a good conversation. I enjoyed it. I hope you guys found it informative. Before we get out of here, make sure to
Throwing my
follow
hat.
us on Twitter. at
Tage
Hot Soap
Thompson
Pod.
hat trick.
Hat trick for Tage Thompson.
Yes. Yeah. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at Hot Soap Pod. That's at Hot Soap Pod on Twitter. Here on the YouTube side, make sure to like the video, comment on the video if you feel like commenting. Hit the subscribe button if you want to subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell as well to get notified when we post new shit. And that's it. I don't know what we're going to do next week. I'm sure we'll find something fun to talk about. But the following week, Mark and I are going to be doing our Oscars live stream. And then we will be doing the week after that, we will be doing our Hot Stove Madness podcast. Mark, are you trying to say something? Or...
Yes.
Okay.
Outside the Box Score every Saturday at 11 a.m.
Yes. I feel terrible that I didn't bring it up at the top of the show. Mark is doing a radio show now on the Score 1260, right? Is that what it is? Yeah, the Score 1260 in the Syracuse area. You can listen to it on the Score 1260.
Listen to it. Score 1260 AM radio.
Score1260.com and the Score 1260 app. Also on Twitch. Live streaming it on Twitch.
Also on Twitch. Outside the Box Score every Saturday at 11 a.m. It was a banger episode this past weekend, Mark.
Thank you.
Who's on the show this week? We got a preview.
Yeah, who's on the show this week?
To be determined, but I might. Well, I've reached out to some people. I might have two guests. A couple local high school hockey coaches for Syracuse hockey, which includes my alma mater, Corcoran, and West Genesee, who have faced off in sectionals every year for like 15 years. They just played each other again in the sectional playoffs, and I think it would be cool to get both of their perspectives on their biggest rival and seeing them every year, and what it's like for West Genny to advance, because West Genny actually took the crown this year, something when I was in high school they very rarely did against Corcoran. So
West Genesee, of course, on the west side of Syracuse. Is that right?
Then Camillus.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, if that does end up panning out, I'm sure it'll be a great conversation. Regardless, you should listen to or watch on Twitch Outside the Box Score every Saturday at 11 on the Score 1260. If we don't have anything else, I think that does it for our plugs at the end of the episode. So I'd like to say thank you for watching. We appreciate you. We love you, and we will see you next time.
Peace.